Hello, and welcome once again to the Dental Marketing Mastery Series. This podcast is brought to you by dentalwebcontent.com and New Patients Incorporated. I'm Howie Horrocks, the founder of New Patients Incorporated. Along with me once again is my friend and partner and the president of New Patients Incorporated, Mark Dilatush. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome once again to our podcast. And we've got a very sad Mark Dilatush on the other end of the phone.
Oh, stop.
You knew I had to say something.
I know. If it was the other way around, I would have said something.
Exactly.
The Eagles lost to the Seahawks. That's why he's gloating.
Yeah, on Sunday night in front of a national audience. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, whatever.
Actually, I'm surprised my team won. Your team's been hotter than a pistol. Well, enough about that stuff. We're gonna introduce a new topic today, right, Mark?
Yes, we are. And it's a topic that it comes to us in all kinds of permutations, and normally it comes to us after several mistakes are made. So whenever something like that happens, we create a little category for our podcasts and for our articles or books or whatever we write, try and help people from avoiding some of these pitfalls. Kind of makes sense, right? So the title of this podcast is I'm planning to buy a practice, but before I do, ... So this may actually have multiple parts to it because we flushed this out in a conversation, and we both agree this could take 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 podcasts if we really want to get detailed. So
it's a big topic. It is.
It's a big topic. So, let's just jump right in. Mistake number one that we see is a dentist who says, I'm a dentist and maybe I did my residency and maybe I spent a year or two out there as an associate and I want to buy a practice. And I'm going to practice in an area that's right next to where I live, or an area that I think just from visual cues looks like people who have money, or maybe just the area of town that has available practices for sale, or whatever, some criteria other than the one it should be. So,
right. What should it be?
Right. What should it be? So you're buying a business. You need to make sure that the local market can support that business moving forward. Okay. So the very first top of the pyramid should be the doctor-patient ratio of any given market before you give that potential seller more than 20 minutes of your time.
Right.
What good does it do if a seller is selling a practice in a 1 to 800 market that they can't penetrate?
Exactly. That might be the reason they're selling.
Exactly. Trust me, it could very well be the reason.
And you don't want to be the recipient of that.
Right. Yes. So the doctor-patient ratio should be the leading indicator of where you spend your search time. So then the next thing is you say, well, how do I find out the best markets in my area? Well, this actually goes all the way back to your personal life. Can you move? Because it doesn't make any sense to just look within 30-minute commute of where you live right now if it's possible for you to move. Because if it's possible for you to move, the world is your oyster, man. You could move. You could be a pedodontist in southeastern Indiana and have a 1 to 45. It's a 1 to 45,000 market. You could have a $2 million pedo practice in a year. You want to move? See, that's how powerful the doctor-patient ratio is. It could actually determine some life choices that you make. So what's more important for you? Living where you are right now, with your circle of influence where you are right now, or is it possible for you to potentially move to a new market? Maybe you like mountain biking and you might want to move to Colorado, or, maybe you like, I don't know, thunderstorms and you might want to move to Houston, right? Whatever you like, that has to come into it too. And whether or not you are either cemented where you are, being cemented where you are simply limits your options. Being able to move opens up a world to you. Okay, so that's the first determination. Can I move? Let's assume the answer is no. Let's assume that, all right, I can't move. I'm married, I have kids, or my family, whatever, my friends, my hobbies, other business interests are all here, and I want to stay here. I want to raise my family here, wherever here is. What you really need now is to determine how far am I willing to commute to go to and from work. And in many cases, the doctors will make that a really short amount of time, 5 minutes, 8 minutes. Well, if it's a really short amount of time, again, you're limiting yourself. There could be a tremendous dental market 8 miles out, and you've limited yourself to a 5-minute commute. Okay. So don't do that. So spread your circle out as far as you're willing to go, and then go another 10% or 20% just to see what's out there. So you have your home, you have your amount of time you're willing to commute to and from your office each day. That basically creates a circle. And you take that circle to the various, there's reporting companies out there, demographic reporting companies for dentists who can do wide area searches and report back to you the top 5 or 6 markets within your driving radius. Well, you know what? That's where I would start. It's kind of like Walmart, or you think of yourself like, or over here in the Northeast, Wawa, or out there in the West, 7-Eleven, or, convenience store. You're not going to put a convenience store right next to another. You're not going to put a 7-Eleven right next to another 7-Eleven, right? So you create a map, you map out all the existing 7-Elevens, and you look for the open spot. Well, that's kind of what you're doing with this, right? You're saying, okay, I live here. I'm willing to travel this amount of time in all directions. And I really like to find the top 4 or 5 dental markets within that sphere, within that circle. And once you do that, now you have a list of zip codes that you can take to a practice broker, or maybe pay attention online, or maybe, I don't know, some online forums that you might be a member of, or maybe inquire of some dentists within those zip codes if they were thinking about or contemplating selling their practice anytime soon. That's how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's also a much more economical way of obtaining practice. Just pick one up that's already existing and rolling, and instead of building a startup from the ground up. That's mega risky right there. But
yeah, I mean, we have these conversations all the time. A doctor will call and say, "Hi, I'm really excited. I just bought my practice in, I don't know, Bellevue, Washington."
Oh boy!
And I say, "Why? Why did you buy that practice?" It's a 1 to 600, and you're completely unprepared for what's about to hit you. Why did you buy that? And well, because it's near me. And that's the answer, because it's near me. I was like, wow. There's an incredibly expensive mistake could have been avoided way up front if you just kind of look at this from just from a 1,000-foot elevation, from a pure business play standpoint. Each one of these exercises will give you a much greater chance at being successful. Once you do own a practice. So you draw your circle, you get your data, you look only in the best markets. Don't even look in the other ones. Look only in the best markets. Look for your potential retiring dentist. Maybe you'll be lucky. Maybe there will already be a practice that's already up for sale in one of these great markets. That's certainly possible. Okay. And you just keep doing it. Keep doing it. And you know what? Sooner or later, you're going to find your practice. And you won't make a decision based on a practice's availability of being for sale. You're going to make your decision based on a practice being in a great dental market, because that is going to squeeze the value out of whatever you're paying for this practice faster than anything. It being in a great market will absolutely help you get a quicker return on whatever you're investing in the practice.
Yeah, and that also can be a somewhat mitigating factor on the over a bad doctor-patient ratio. Is the area just exploding with growth?
Sure.
So because eventually that's going to work in your favor and everybody else's favor as well. But then you're also going to be subject to attracting other dentists just like you that want to move into a growing area. So it's kind of tricky.
Right. Which is why you just take your time and you sit down and you kind of just map it out, and you do it logically and you do it over time. You don't make emotional decisions. You make them based on as much logic and fact as you possibly can get your hands on. So, okay, so let's keep going. Let's say we have our circle and we have our 4 or 5 zip codes, and we've gone and spoke to all the older docs out there. And you know what? There's one that, might be willing to have somebody buy in and then ultimately buy out. Well, there you go. Now, once you're, or let's say it's a straight purchase. There is no real buy-in. It's just buy it. That's the buy-in. It's one day. It's like a house transaction. So before you go do that, remember the whole title of this is I'm planning to buy a practice, but before I do, ... We're going to share with you some of the, and we're probably going to get ourselves in trouble with some of these valuation specialists, but oh well. Let's just realize that if there is no real estate that's going in with the transaction, and let's assume that the dental equipment is X years old and has X value left in it, that the real value, what you're really paying for, is basically patient base and goodwill. That's pretty much the goodwill that the previous dentist created along the way over the years. And one of the gigantic mistakes that we see constantly, and it's not the dentist's fault, they're paying professionals to give them this bad information, is the overestimation of what an established or active patient is.
Oh, yes.
So when
the very definition.
Right. So you're going to see these valuation reports, especially if there are brokers involved. I'm not picking on brokers, and I'm not picking on CPAs that do valuations. They're given principles and guidelines to follow. They've probably been following them for years, and that's fine. That's fine. But you just need to know how far off those valuations are. That's your job. That's not their job. It's your job to know the truth. Okay. So when they start creating numbers of established patients, active patients, that's the funny word there is active. They start counting active patients to create the value that you're paying for. Remember, you're only paying for basically patient charts, because the building's for rent or lease, and the equipment's probably 15 years old. So what are you really buying? You're really buying patient charts. And they're going to come up with these things called numbers of active patients. And their definition of active patient is going to be a patient that the practice has seen in the last 18 months. That is not an active patient. I know they're going to tell you it is. And they're going to say, well, this is the way we've done it for 37 years. Mark and Howie are telling you that those patients are not necessarily active. 10% of them could be active. 90% of them could be active. What we're doing in your mind is drawing a correlation between your money and that definition, because that's what you're paying for. You're paying for active patients. So let's take a break. And when I come back, we'll talk about how to determine how many truly active patients they have.
Don't go away. We'll be right back. Hey, Mark, how would our audience find out about getting more good reviews?
Well, first step is to understand it. There's minefields in the dental business right now. So let me give you the 4 keys. 1, has to be simple for your staff. They can actually call in sick and it'll still work. 2, it has to be ridiculously simple for your patients to leave Google reviews. 3, it has to be able to separate out the not so good reviews from the great reviews and only send the great reviewers over to your Google, Facebook, or Yelp. And 4, and this is probably the most important, only send reviews to platforms where your reviews cannot be taken away. If anybody has any questions about this, it's called NPI Crusader. You can just send Howie and I an email, or actually you can log on to newpatientsinc.com and you can schedule your very own appointment to see it in an online meeting that usually takes 15 to 20 minutes. So most people do it over a lunchtime.
Okay, we are back. We were talking about the definition of an active patient, right?
We were, because they're overvalued and dentists overpay. So the definition of an active patient is any patient that is currently in the schedule or due to be in the schedule in the next 12 months. You can write that down. Any patient who is currently in the appointment schedule or due to be in the schedule in the next 12 months. That is anyone in the schedule and anyone in active recare for the next 12 months, basically. It is not patients seen in the last 3 years. That is not.
That's looking backward,
right? Exactly.
To the past, right?
Exactly.
To tell you what the future is going to be. Okay.
Right. So if somebody's selling you their practice for $500,000, right, based on whatever 5,000 active patients, and you only see 1,000 of them that are in the schedule right now or due to be in the schedule in the next 12 months, you're spending about, what is that, $500 a patient for truly active patients. Okay. Now, the broker is going to say, well, no. Last 3 years, whatever, billion active patients came into this practice. Well, that is not a real number. It's a number that they use. So that's the second thing that we would say. The first thing was select your location carefully. Do not select it just because some dentist is selling a practice there. The second biggest thing we want you to keep your eyes open for is the true definition of an active patient. And here's why. We would hope that when you're going to go out and buy a practice, you would end up with maybe multiple practices to choose from. That's not unheard of, right? You can go to zip code A and zip code C and zip code E, and there might even be 3 practices for sale, and you're looking to determine which of those opportunities is best for you, gives you the best chance at success. And the way they measure active patients and the way you measure active patients are going to be very different. But if you measure them properly, they are undeniable. In other words, there's no funny business anybody can do with those numbers. You just go to the schedule, print a schedule report for the next 12 months, and and that's it. And run a recall report for the next 12 months. Add those 2 numbers of patients together. Let's say there's 600 people who are already in the schedule. That's 600. Let's say there's 600 people who are due to be in the schedule in recare over the next 12 months. That's 600. Add 600 to 600, and the practice really has about 1,200 active charts, not 5,000. Okay. Right. The other 800, they are not active. I don't know where they are. I don't know where they went. Now,
Yeah, they have a chance to become active, but they're not right now.
Exactly. Now,
it's a much more realistic look, because I'll tell you, Mark and I run into this a lot with new clients or recently acquired practices, and that's always the complaint. Well, the seller overestimated the number of active patients, and I thought I was getting a lot more than I really got, and now I'm in trouble and I have to work my butt off.
Well, yeah. Now you're paying for the practice, paying for the lease space, paying for the equipment. Your staff. I mean, that's another whole 9 podcasts we can go through with the staff, right? So, but now you're out of marketing money.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when, we're not complaining, but that's a lot of times that's when you call a marketing company, is when you're broke. Right. Yeah. What we're trying to help you do is not get there. Okay. Whether you call us or not.
Yeah.
We're trying to help you not be broke. So, anyway, step 1, choose your location in your office properly. Step 2, measure truly active patients. Now, the next step beyond that should be kind of logical. Like, what is this doctor doing? What was this doctor doing for the last 5 to 8 years? Because there's all kinds of transition situations, right? You all know this. I mean, there's the doctor who, has a very robust, active practice, does a really good, solid scope of dentistry, doesn't refer hardly anything out. The patient's recare compliance seems excellent. He has, just a tremendous dental practice. And it's, the number of truly active patients is maybe the highest of the 3 practices you're looking for. And he's just a sweetheart of a guy, and he just wants to, go fishing, right, for the rest of his retirement life. Well, okay, here's the problem with that scenario is everybody's mouth is probably really clean. And there's probably hardly any dentistry you're going to get out of the patient's mouths.
Yeah, it's already been done.
It's already been done. Guy's an awesome guy, great clinician, wonderful diagnostician. Patients seem to be really happy with him. And he's very active, does marketing, has all this stuff all in line. It looks like the perfect practice until you get in there and everything looks really clean on an x-ray. Okay. You have the other opposite scenario where you have the dentist who's kind of lost interest, I guess.
Lost his mojo.
Well, lost his mojo. There you go. Thanks, Howie. Lost his mojo, for dentistry. And it's kind of a means to an end. It's a living. The 3-day practice, 3-day-a-week practice, maybe 3.5. Couldn't ever see him doing this for 4 days a week. Oh my God, it would kill him. Right. And, he's been kind of just, if he does his composites, does a crown here and there, sends out all of his endo, all of his ortho, most of his perio, only restores implants, doesn't do any of that stuff. Invisalign, schmizalign, that kind of dentist, right? But maybe his active patient base is pretty low, right? I mean, his active. Anyway, there are mitigating factors to everything that we're saying. You could have great, truly active patient numbers with a great dentist with incredibly compliant patients. So the active patient number isn't the only thing you look at, but it's certainly one of the things that you look at. And you don't base it on what the CPA tells you is a quote unquote active patient that's been seen in the last 18 months. That's just kind of insanity. Now beyond what kind of a dental office this is, you're going to want to take a look at the team. And this is where, it's kind of funny. We walk through life with hundreds of dentists through our careers. And when it comes to acquiring a dental practice, the acquirer, at some point, it's very infrequent that a dentist will only replace 1 or 2 people who were there before. It's usually the staff that was there is truly an excellent staff and they keep them all. Or a certain period of time goes by and the new acquiring doctor, nervous to do anything with the staff because the staff knows every patient in the office and that's what they bought. They basically bought patient charts. Certainly doesn't want to upset that apple cart and do anything with those staff. He wants to keep them all in place, keep them all happy, goes overboard to the point of almost ridiculousness, and then finds out a year or 2 or 3 later that basically this is an enormous hostage situation. Okay?
Yeah.
And they have to clean house. Okay. So, I guess to end this podcast, I would say that the first 3 things that you pay attention to when you're buying a practice is absolutely the market and location. What market, what's the viability of the market that this practice that you're going to buy is located in? That is absolutely top of the pyramid. The second one is, what's the real number of truly active patients in this practice? Because they can be elevated artificially left or right by just using the typical has visited the office in the last 18 months rule. And the third one is the staff. Now, the third one is usually the hardest one or the most difficult one to assess if you're buying the practice outright. In other words, if you're not an associate in the practice already, you've had no time to get used to the team. You've had no time to interact with them in good situations and bad situations, confusing situations, upsetting situations. If you haven't had any of that time, assessing staff is or can be very difficult. Chances are the selling dentist loves them all, but equally chances of you loving them are, basically 50-50. Because the dentist that owns the practice right now may himself or herself be in an equal hostage situation. So, and they're just sitting there waiting to sell their practice, and they figure they'll hand that issue over to the new guy or gal who owns the practice. So, so these are three things that Howie and I wanted you to pay attention to. I am planning to buy a practice, but before I do, ... I will pay attention to the market I buy into. I absolutely will understand what a true active patient is. And I will, as best as I can, try to assess the team to see if there are people that I can work with or people that I'm going to have to change over. And that's
3 golden rules right there.
3 golden rules.
All right. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the podcast. We hope you tune us in again next time. Bye now. We hope you've enjoyed our podcast today. You can find more podcasts on our YouTube channel, on Stitcher, and iTunes. Also on our websites, dentalwebcontent.com and newpatientsinc.com.